Can Greg Schiano get things to the way they were in 2006 at Rutgers? I think he's the only man for the job. Today, we dive into Rutgers football.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Shemon. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network right here. Your team every day. All right, we're going to take a close look at the Rutgers football program, kind of mired in mediocrity and struggling as of late. We'll find out which direction they're going. Also, I will give you an honest game-by-game analysis of the upcoming football season, and we'll figure out how many wins this football team is going to get this year. Plus, our benchmark of the day, the Big Ten Network's Big Ten Classics, a great weekend coming up. Great things to watch. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcasts. That way, you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Going to start you off with a fun fact here. Now, if you are a Rutgers football fan, you already know this. Many of you don't. Did you know that Rutgers played in the first ever intercollegiate college football game? They beat Princeton 6-4 in a barn burner back in 1869. That's right. Lots of history here. Best season in all that history got to be 2006. They were 11-2. They were ranked 12th, got their first bowl win. Now, they were in the Big East then, not the Big Ten, and I'm going to kind of come back to that in just a little bit. But that season, they started out 9-0. And they beat third-ranked Louisville at the time, and the BCS had them ranked as high as 6th in the country back then. Well, Greg Schiano was their football coach back then, and he is again here. This is his second stint with the school, obviously. But after arriving in 2001, he only won 12 games in the first 4 years, but the administration thought they had the right guy, and they stuck with him. Finally had the breakout year in 2005 with a winning record at 7-5. And then the magic year in 2006, in which he went 11-2, and he didn't parlay that into another job just yet. In fact, stayed for 5 more seasons, and in 4 of those 5 seasons, won 8 or 9 games throughout that time. So pretty good run. Then he left, as you all know, to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and was an assistant at Ohio State as well. Came back in 2020, and look, anybody starting over and coming back to a program in 2020 during COVID, a season that almost didn't happen, all sorts of protocol. You got like 100 kids you're responsible for. It was a tough year. Went 3-6, but that's a tough way to start a job for sure. Went 5-8 and then 4-8 the next 2 years. Again, now in the Big Ten, not the Big East, and since he's come back to Rutgers in the Big Ten, in 9 games against the Big Three, and by that I mean Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, he's 0-9, and he's lost to each of them by an average of 27 points, except remember, everybody wants to point out the 2021 game against Michigan, where they only lost 20-13, had him on the ropes in that game. And I say that not to be negative. I just say that to show where the team is. You got to close that gap if you want to be competitive with the big boys. And so that's kind of the state of the union right now with Rutgers football, and closing that gap and getting better and improving. So let's start off by looking at this year's football team. We're going to start off with the offense. This offense only cracked 21 points 3 times last year. That's it. And they got to get more punch to the offense. So let's start off with the quarterback room. Gavin Wimsatt started 6 games last season, got a big arm, needs to work on his accuracy a little bit. He did throw for 62 touchdowns in high school at Owensboro, Kentucky, where he played high school football. Another quarterback in the quarterback room is junior Evan Simon. He started 2 games last year, but here's the interesting part. In the Iowa game, went 28 for 49 and threw for 300 yards and a touchdown. People are going, well, wait a minute. Maybe this is our guy. Can he do it consistently? I think there's going to be a battle between Simon and Wimsatt for quarterback going into the first week of the season. Johnny Shepard, also their very athletic person with a big arm, can run and some size, 6'3", 230 pounds. So that's a look at the quarterback room for Rutgers going into this season. A lot of question marks going into the season. Wide receiver, they got a senior transfer, Nisam Brentley, out of Western Illinois and also Sacred Heart. Between the two colleges, he's started 32 college games. He's got a lot of experience, got 135 catches, averages 16 yards per catch. He's a guy that can make big plays. There's no doubt about it. It's exactly what this Rutgers offense needs. Interesting note about Greg Schiano, though. He and his staff have been very cautious, in my opinion, about entering the transfer portal and bringing in a lot of guys. I've read a lot of quotes and heard him say, look, we double down on making sure that we're going to get a guy that fits the culture of the locker room. That's just as important as can the guy play football. So they've been kind of slow, I think, in getting a lot of guys out of the transfer portal. But Brantley is one of them. So we'll see how he fits in. I think he's going to be a focus point of this offense this upcoming season. The running back room, Samuel Brown only had one start. I think he's going to be the starting running back this year. Only one start under his belt last year, but he was the team's second leading rusher. And he had that one start against Indiana, and he lit it up. He had 28 carries for 101 yards and a game-winning touchdown. So most carries by a true freshman at Rutgers since 2001. So he is going to get every opportunity to be the guy at running back this year for Rutgers. And what's he running behind? What kind of offensive line? Well, Willie Tyler, he went to the transfer portal and he left for Louisville. No doubt about it. That hurts. They certainly could use him this year, but the cupboard is not totally bare on the offensive line for Rutgers. Left tackle Holland Pierce, a mountain of a man, 6'8", 340 pounds, and a smart guy, two-time academic All-Big Ten. And they got some good size inside as well. Center, senior Island Brown, started 11 games last year, played left guard the previous year, so he's versatile. Also another two-time academic All-Big Ten. Smart guy, knows what to do, knows where to be, knows how to call out the plays. So I think the offensive line is going to be pretty good. This is going to be a good, grinded in the trenches football team, either with their offensive line. But I want to look at the defense because I think, make no mistake about it, the identity of this Rutgers football team is going to be its defense this year. Aaron Lewis, defensive end, might be the best player on the team. And, you know, he originally signed at Michigan. In fact, he enrolled. He was there. He was on campus. He was taking classes and then decided to leave, come back out east, and turned out to be the co-MVP defensive player on the defense last year for this team. He's preseason All-Big Ten, second team for 2023 as well. Also on the other defensive end, Wesley Bailey started all 12 games last year, team high 3.5 sacks. They got to get a lot more sacks, by the way, but he led the team in sacks. They also added, here's another rare transfer, senior defensive tackle Isaiah Aiton from Ole Miss, and also played at Hutchinson Community College and Northern Colorado. The kid's bounced around a lot of places trying to find a home. Maybe Rutgers will be the answer for him. Add a little depth to that defensive line. At linebacker, I think this is the strength of this football team. This is going to be a smash mouth, grinded defense. Mohamed Toure missed last year with a torn ACL. Played in 13 games the year before. He's going to come back. That's going to be great. They really need him back. Deion Jennings, honorable mention, All Big Ten last season. Preseason All Big Ten third team for 2023. And their leading tackler and 8.5 tackles for loss last year. Guy has a great nose for the football. And also Tyreen Powell, preseason All Big Ten 14 this year and a 2021 academic All Big Ten player, smart guy. So they got three, I think, really good linebackers, going to be the heart and soul of the Rutgers defense this year. And again, I think this defense could be tough enough to keep Rutgers in some close games, and that's how you get some upsets every once in a while, and that'll help you out in the end. So we'll keep an eye on that on the defense. Secondary looks good too. Cornerback Max Melton Jr. started all 12 games last year, led the nation with 3 block kicks as well on special teams, couple interceptions, 10 pass breakups. Just one of those guys that's all over the ball, just knows where to go. And also the other corner at Robert Longerbeam, 2-time academic All Big Ten, couple of interceptions last year in just 6 starts. Also, free safety, Desmond Igbenasum. He could tackle. He made at least 5 tackles in 5 different games last year. And also strong safety transfer, Michael Flip Dixon, goes by Flip Dixon from Minnesota. He's played 30 games in 3 seasons at Minnesota, so a lot of experience there as well. So that's a thumbnail look at the roster, their strengths and their weaknesses, the question marks, areas they're solid in as they go into this season here in 2023. At this point, I'd like to take a quick peek at 2024 and look at some of the recruits. The ranking services from 24/7 has them ranked as the 32nd best recruiting class right now, Rutgers, for 2024. They have 20 commits already signed up. They're led by a couple of players. Corey Duff Jr., he is a tight end out of New York. He just signed last week, and he goes right to the top of the board, the best recruit they have. So that's going to help out their rankings as well. Gabriel Winowich, he's just an athlete from Detroit, multi-positional player. He signed in January. And Isaiah Crumpler, wide receiver out of Greenville, North Carolina, he signed in May. So there you have it. There's a look at the future and what's coming down the road for this Rutgers football team, in addition to how things are shaping up for the upcoming season. Now, in a moment, we'll take a look at their schedule and how things shake out. I think it could be a favorable schedule in some areas, super tough in other areas. We'll get into all of that as we continue on Locked On Big Ten. But first, we are brought to you by FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Doesn't matter. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from money line to point spreads, run spreads, also other prop bets, who's going to strike out first, who's going to hit the first home run, all that stuff. It's all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid right away, instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, let's take a close look at the upcoming Rutgers football season on the schedule. I told you I will always give you an honest assessment of where I think a team will end up. We play the win-loss game. We'll start it off on September 3rd. Yeah, you're right. That's a Sunday. Sunday college football to open up the season. They host Northwestern, and it's at noon. One of just three games on national TV, triple header, if you will, for college football. It's that awkward weekend where the NFL preseason is done. They're waiting for the regular season, and college football kind of fills the gaps. And so Rutgers gets a nationally televised audience at 12 o'clock against Northwestern on that Sunday. That'll be great. They can win that game. They can win. They can start off 1-0. The following week on September 9th, we got a 7:30 night game against Temple at home. They should win that one. However, remember, you're a Rutgers fan, you know this. They only won 16-14 last year, a squeaker. Hopefully this year for Rutgers, not as close of a football game. Then I think a very key game is that's going to tell you and how this team is going to springboard for the rest of their season. Virginia Tech, 3:30 on the 16th. Let's put an asterisk by that one and come back to it in a moment, because the following week at Michigan, told you at the beginning of the broadcast how Rutgers has done against the Michigans and the Ohio States and Penn States. A lot of you remember, as I do, 2021. They went to the big house and gave them fits. In fact, Michigan barely won 20-13, although Michigan won by 35 last year. Look, I'm going to be honest. I think Michigan wins this football game. I think Michigan is playing at a whole other level, got a whole another set of talent on that football team this year. Then the next game, Rutgers comes home on the 30th to take on Wagner. They should win that game. And looking pretty good at that point before they hit the road and take on a tough Wisconsin team. I think that's going to be a tough game for Rutgers, to be honest. I really do. Then they come home against Michigan State for a 12 o'clock game on October 14th, followed by a road game at Bloomington against Indiana, a 12 o'clock game on the 21st. The reason I mentioned these two games together, these are like teeter-totter games. Season can go either way at this point. And these are two teams that played close games with Rutgers last year. In fact, Rutgers lost to Michigan State 27-21 last year, but they beat Indiana 24-7. So one-score games. And again, these two games, maybe they split them, but if they can go 2-0, then I think you can see, at least in the one-loss record, some big-time improvement from the year before. So keep that in mind. And that goes into the bye week, which gets them ready for the Ohio State game. It's at Rutgers this year. You all know Ohio State is loaded. You all know Greg Schiano wants to win that game because he used to be an assistant at Ohio State and knows every one of those coaches on that staff, and he wants to beat them. I just don't know if they have the manpower to do it. I really don't. Maybe one of those games where Rutgers is close in the first half. I think that's how I see that one shaping up. And if Ohio State's not tough enough coming off the bye, then 2 road games at Iowa and at Penn State. Now, they lost to Iowa by 17 points last year. I think Iowa's going to be a little bit better this year as well. And at Penn State is going to be tough as nails. No doubt about it. And then closing it out against Maryland. You'd think maybe that could be a winnable game, but they lost to Maryland last year, 37-0. I don't know if it was the end of the season. Everybody wanted to go home for the holidays. I don't know. 37-0. It was just a tough day. But if you add it all up and look at it realistically, I think worst case scenario, 4-8. Now, these games that we go back to and put an asterisk by, these are winnable games. These are games that they can win. I think 6-6 is a real possibility. Maybe if things go well, they get all these games like Michigan State and Indiana, and then they can find a way to win against Maryland to close out the season. Maybe a 7-5, maybe a 7-5. But I think that 6-6 is the sweet spot, and it's improvement from last year. It's going in the right direction for Greg Schiano. That's my assessment of the season. If you agree or disagree with me, I would love to hear from you, by the way. You can hit me on Twitter at Talk Big Ten. And you could also, if you're watching on YouTube, there's the comments section. Would welcome your input on all of that. Thank you, by the way, for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day. Everydayers out there, our next show, we'll take an early look at the Maryland Terps football program. So be sure to subscribe on YouTube, share, follow, and like Locked On Big Ten. I would personally appreciate it. Coming up next, our weekly feature, the Big Ten Network's Big Ten Classics. All right. We like to have some fun in this last segment. We have fun in all of our segments, actually, but I'm glad you're with us here today. We're going to take a look, like we do on Thursdays, the Big Ten Network's Big Ten Classics, everything they have on over the weekend. And by the way, if you are just listening on the podcast, we always put these up on graphic, full screen, with our visual component, the video component on YouTube. Invite you to check that out as well. But I'll kind of draw this out and mention everything that's going on. Let's take a look. Coming up on Friday, July 7th. These are all Eastern times, by the way. They started out with the 2016 Michigan and Ohio State football game. This is the one where Curtis Samuel had the 15-yard run in double overtime, and Ohio State won 30-27. Then they follow that up from 6 to 8 p.m. with their rival show, and it's all about the Ohio State-Michigan game. So if you are all into this rivalry, check it out. It's 2 solid hours of it. Fantastic programming. Followed by, at 8 o'clock Eastern, the 2021 Ohio State-Michigan game. Michigan won that one. Aiden Hutchinson, 3 sacks. Hassan Haskins scores 5 touchdowns in that game. And then at 9 o'clock, a feature on the game. The game. Michigan, Ohio State, 2006. Some people say it was the game of the century. Both teams were undefeated going into that game for the first time in the series history. Ohio State was ranked number 1 in the country. Michigan was ranked number 2 in the country. Unbelievable. Bo Schembechler dies the night before the game, if you remember that, at the age of 77. And Ohio State wins in a shootout, 42-39. 81 points. So much for 3 yards and a cloud of dust, like they used to say back in the day. So that's just Friday. On Saturday, July 8th, we go into the most played rivalry in FBS history for the Paul Bunyan Axe. I'm talking Wisconsin, Minnesota. At 5 p.m. Eastern, they got the 2:30 battle between those two. Minnesota wins on a last-second walk-off 35-yard field goal. And then at 11 p.m. Eastern, they play the 2020 game where Wisconsin won on a 30-yard field goal in overtime for the win. And then Sunday, July 9th, all day long, check your local listings. It's all Indiana and Purdue. I mean, it's baseball, it's basketball, it's all the football battles for the old Oak and Bucket. It is all right there. So check your local listings for what game and what sport on Sunday, July 9th, if you're looking for something to watch. So that's a look at our Big Ten Network, Big Ten Classics. We like to do that once a week and check it out. So again, that was a lot of fun. I can't believe our time's up already. I want to thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day. Every day is our next show. We'll take an early look at the Maryland Terps football program. In the meantime, we're inviting as many of you as possible into our club, kind of the Cool Kids Club, our Big Ten Club, if you will. Many ways to interact with me on Twitter at Talk Big Ten. And also, if you subscribe and are on YouTube, there's a comment section there as well. Follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it is available each and every day. Now, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast for the latest on everything going on in sports. In the meantime, hope you have a wonderful day or evening, depending on when you are consuming this. We will see you next time. I'm Craig Shemon for Locked On Big Ten.